I'm not entirely sure what I just read. I just looked so at least this version of Star Trek, the motion picture novelization, has two prefaces to it: Admiral Kirk's preface and an author's preface. I just read them as one. It's weird. More so the Kirk preface, and even though that's first, I want to do the author's preface first, which in theory is Roddenberry talking. Mentions that in theory, at least. It set up in the Kirk preface is Kirk saying that there's a lot with the Kirk thing that I want to get to, but I want to get to that later because it's Kirk is saying, yeah, they kind of talked us up a lot. I didn't like that exaggeration, so that's why I want a record of these events recorded and not just put into some report, but written as a book in physical paper for people to read. Obviously, I am actually not reading it physically, but still. And that then get the author's preface saying that, yeah, considering my hand in the stuff that he says is exaggerated, it's interesting, came back to me, but hey, whatever, I'm happy to do it. But also says that Spock, McCoy, Admiral Nagoya, Commander Scott, and the Enterprise bridge crew all had the opportunity to provide comment to make sure that the full truth is in there. I don't like these frame narratives. I don't feel it's needed. But there's also, it feels weird. Yeah. But he, because I'm assuming this is Roddenberry supposedly speaking for a version of himself that is contemporary with Captain Kirk. The one thing that he talks about is that he feels that the Enterprise and its crew is his own private view of Earth and humanity in microcosm. But also, the Starship Enterprise always carried much more than mere respect and tolerance for other life forms and ideas. It carried the more positive force of love for the almost limitless variety within our universe. Is this capacity for love for should be capacity of love for all things, not for love for, well, I mean it's either way, but which has always seemed to me the most always seemed to me the first indication that an individual or a race is approaching adulthood. Something actually kind of... There are two ways of reading that sentence. Two ways to describe love there. One is, and when I first read it, it's like, so you're talking about, the like hippie kind of love, where it's like, just love everyone, in which case, that doesn't make sense, because Starfleet is a military organization. Like, even in the original series, that's clearly what it is. So, they're going on with love for everybody? I think the Klingons aren't so certain about that, nor the Romulans. So it's like, yeah, that's a little weird. I could see it being a little bit the hippie kind of love. But there's also another kind of love, which is basically don't read as much, don't read if deeper meaning to the sentence. The love for the almost limitless variety within our universe. I would, and to get to the point ultimately I'm going to try to make it, I'm going to first say, I would feel that this is just written poorly. Because if it is just like a love for all things in the universe, personally I would say it should just be love for the universe, which would include all things within it. That's fine. And in fact, if you read A Letter from Catherine, that's kind of part of it there. For Roman, there are multiple scenes in that where he is just enjoying being in existence and seeing existence. And even though, like with the cover image, he's looking at a nebula. Technically, that nebula, he would not have that view up from where he is, but setting that aside, it gives him joy for that. Because even though this is a great, magnificent thing, it is still, the idea of, oh, we're so small, Roman totally rejects that. It's like, no, we are not small. because we are still part of it. We are equal. We have an equal existence within the universe as any of these grand, magnificent things you see. We are still magnificent, maybe not so grand on scale, but we are grand in our own ways. So it's like, this is all something to love, to enjoy, and such. So you can also interpret it that way. But it's still a little weird how it's written. Especially with the whole more than mere respect and tolerance for other life forms and ideas. I don't know, that the way that kind of sets it off as a contrast does feel to me more like a hippie kind of love. And I that may sound weird, but what I mean by that is the idea of, when I'm saying hippie kind of love here, I mean the idea that you're basically ignoring things and just saying I love you, and it's like, no, you don't, because you don't know anything about the person. A hippie kind of love would be if they encountered a species that is cannibalistic, and we're like, oh well, we love you. It's like, that's not really a good thing here. That them being cannibals, that's kind of not the. I mean, maybe don't be so tolerant. But it would even be oh, we love you. What's with all these skulls, by the way? I mean, that's what I mean by a hippie kind of love, where it's like you're not actually looking at it all. Because there's also, to me, love should also include the imperfections. And a hippie love, and I'm just trying to explain what I mean by a hippie love, is where it's like you're just ignoring those imperfections. You're ignoring the problems. You're ignoring the issues. And I do understand that there's probably a far better way to put it than the way I'm putting it. It just reads a little weird. And seriously, when I get to the Kirk preface, that's even weirder. But it is also funny that this idea, it is this capacity for love for all things, which has always seemed to me the first indication that an individual or a race is approaching adulthood. And I read that, I'm just like, wait a minute. Roddenberry intentionally has no religion in humanity within Star Trek, because he believed that once you achieve this adulthood, that basically humans would eventually reach the point of development, personal, technological, cultural, and such, that religion would cease to exist. That it would no longer be there, no longer be relevant. But this concept here is very much Catholic. I mean, I would like to say also just Christianity as a whole. I don't know enough about all the different denominations, but that's definitely a Catholic thing. So it's like, dude, you were rejecting religion, but the very thing you're saying would have us approaching adulthood is like what some of us have been taught, and many would have been taught over 2,000 years. And you're saying that isn't in Star Trek. I'm not sure what to do with that. I mean, aside from guess, and it would only be a guess, a lack of understanding about it, which, I mean, I do think that is true for many faiths, for many religions, that people who criticize it, people who demean it, they don't actually know it. They're not asking either good questions, or they're not asking the right people. And, I mean, to be fair, there's plenty of questions you could ask me that I would not be able to answer very well, and I fully acknowledge that. But there are some that I would still try to. Anyway, let's get to the Admiral Kirk's preface, which so you may remember, if you looked at it, Princess Bride assigned reading videos. I ended that by saying, skip the 30th anniversary introduction, skip the 25th anniversary introduction, and don't touch the Buttercup's baby section at the end. Just set those all aside. But definitely there's... I wouldn't bother with the Admiral Kirk preface. I wouldn't bother with the Arthur preface either. The Arthur preface isn't so bad. The Admiral Kirk one is like, what? And very much more so sets up the whole, this is hippie nonsense. Or even commie gobbledygook. So this is how it starts. I don't have it all highlighted, but yeah. My name is James Tiberius Kirk. Kirk because my father and his male forebears followed the old custom of passing along a family identity name. Alright, where's this going? I received James because it was both the name of my father's beloved brother, as well as that of my mother's first love instructor. Mother's first love instructor. I'm single. That changes. And get married, time to be, and it's like, what name? Well, I really like the name of my first love instructor. I'm gonna be like, what the hell are you talking about? What? What? No, we ain't doing that. But I thought you liked, you know what? No, we're not doing that name anymore. What the hell is, what? Should have just left it at, my father's beloved brother, which, by the way, I mean, it's like the Star Trek 2009. Hey, how do you like that? It's wrong. Like, literally, the first paragraph of this and the explanation there is wrong. Actually, for both names, both the James and the Tiberius. Tiberius, as I am forever tired of explaining, was the Roman emperor whose life, for some unfathomable reason, fascinated my grandfather Samuel. So he's named for his uncle, and as in favor of his grandfather Tiberius. Not that both of his grandfathers had those as their first names, which is what's depicted in Star Trek 2009. Okay. It goes on with more of this name nonsense. This is not trivial information. For example, the fact that I use an old-fashioned male surname says a lot about both me and the service to which I belong. There are so many problems with this. Although the male surname custom has become rare among humans elsewhere, it remains a fairly common thing among those of us in Starfleet. We are a highly conservative and strongly individualistic group. The old customs die hard with us. What the hell are you talking about? I was like, first off, what is a male surname? I mean, I will grant I'm not great with names, okay? I know that names have certain meanings, well, last names have certain meanings to them, like you can use them to identify a person's heritage. I'm terrible at that, and honestly, I kind of see it as a good thing. Let's say I don't really care. I just want to get to know you. I don't, like, whatever. I don't care what, doesn't matter. But it's like, them, they're gendered? It's somebody's last name. Well, like, I even looked it up, what a surname is, just to be sure, because I was like, that's a last name, right? Because, I mean, those don't have gender. Do they? I don't think they do. Why would they? Because they're the thing that is applied to all the children, regardless. What the hell is this? But then there's also this idea of it being old-fashioned. Old-fashioned is without those. Like, that's one thing when I tried reading through Don Quixote. The introduction to it that I had talked about how, well, so, hang on. Miguel, crap, all I'm thinking about is Cervantes. I can't remember, but he was actually, is Miguel Cervantes? Is that it? Let's go with that. Well, Miguel was his first name. Cervantes is the name of a mountain region that his family was from. And yes, that's where the name comes from, because at the time, surnames weren't really popular. They weren't really a thing you did much of. So, but then it became popular, so, oh, you had to take one. Well, they took it from where they lived, or at least nearby. Which is actually it's actually a little funny, because the tradition of three names, first, middle, and last, actually goes back to ancient Rome, and is actually very important, because Roman citizens would have the three names. Roman slaves would only have two. So, part of the reason why I remember this is when learning Latin, the way some of the books were structured were that you were following Quintus, who would better be known as Horace, least like that as an author, that's who we would know him as. But he was the firstborn. I think he was the firstborn son. In any case, he was a child of freed slaves. So his father only had two names, but he did have three. And so it's like he was born a full citizen. His father was born a slave, became a free citizen, became a citizen, but was not born free. So yeah, it just, I don't know, it is just weird. But still, Cervantes, that would have been what, 15th century? I feel like I need to look this up to make sure I get the name right and the timeline, but it still is like names like that. And it's also another example, Leonardo da Vinci. That's actually Leonardo of Vinci. I'm not sure which part of Italy that was, because he was a bastard. He didn't actually have a family name for him. So he's just Leonardo from that village, from that town, from that location. Because traditionally that is what you did. You that's how you could identify somebody, especially if they didn't have a name. But anyhow. But also the idea that common things among those of us in Starfleet, it's like, so his father was in Starfleet, his grandfather was in Starfleet, his father was in Starfleet, his father was in Starfleet. I mean, I knew a guy, his last name was Carpenter. And he would tell the joke that, he's a carpenter, his daddy was a carpenter before him, his daddy before him, and it's like he enjoyed that joke there. But it's like this, I mean, what if Jim here, like his parents weren't his dad wasn't in Starfleet, so it's like, well, we like having a surname. We don't remember what it is, son. What's he gonna do? I mean, is he gonna become James de Iowa? I mean, he's from Iowa, but I mean, it's just like, what is this? It gets weirder though. Some critics have characterized us of Starfleet as primitives. We are not part of these increasingly large numbers of humans who seem willing to submerge their own identities into the groups to which they belong. This is commie gobbledygook. It seems, which is funny because, well, okay, Roddenberry was a utopist, I believe, is the best way, but I'm pretty sure he was. Which is, I gotta go through Utopia at some point for assigned reading, because it's been a while since I've read it, but I remember it is, I dislike the term dystopia or dystopic, because it's like, no, that's what Utopia is. It's a horrible place. It really is. Like, and there are aspects of it that are straight up evil. Anyway. But yeah, it just... Ugh. But it basically describes how these new humans that Starfleet isn't are just, they're more intelligent and such than others. But still, this idea of submerging their own identities into the groups of which they belong, it's like, hang on. You're just telling me that a rigorous military organization that would have clearly defined hierarchical structure doesn't have people submerging their own identities within it. What? I mean, don't get me wrong. Their own identities are important, all right? It's gobbledygook that says that, no, you must sacrifice all of that for the good of the group. It's like, that's actually really bad. That is evil. That is degrading to the people. But it's like, Starfleet is also voluntary, I should point that out. But it's like, you guess what? Sulu, you like clocks, that's cool. If it's not helping you on the bridge, don't bring it on the bridge. Keep that stuff in your quarters. I use that because Sulu, there is at least one episode, it is mentioned, he does actually have a fascination with clocks and timepieces. I don't remember which one. I'm pretty sure it is in first season. 2-degree Chekhov, with some of it probably being sincere, some of it being jokes, with the whole everything having been invented in Russia. It's like that, if that ever got out of hand on the bridge, he would, and I think there were times when he was told to knock it off. It's like, yeah, individuality, guess what? There are times we can't have that. It's still useful. Like, Scotty being Scotty is in some way in times necessary for the safety of the ship. But it's like Kirk is the one in charge. Guess what? You keep your mouth shut when he needs to be in control. But no, this isn't the one where you must submerge your own identities. The hell is this? But it's also why are they in Starfleet? Because they found that they're most successful compared to these more intelligent. It seems an almost absurd claim that we primitives make better space travelers than the highly evolved, superbly intelligent, and adaptable new humans. The reason for this paradox is best explained in a Vulcan study of Starfleet's early years, during which vessel disappearances, crew defections, and mutinies had brought deep space exploration to a near halt. It goes on to basically say that these superbly, was looking at the stuff that I didn't highlight. These superbly intelligent and flexible minds being sent out by Starfleet could not help but be seduced eventually by the higher philosophies, aspirations, and consciousness levels being encountered. Screw you, I'm going to say first. We'll go on with this. I'm sorry, I really have a hatred for this idea that humanity would enter into the cosmos and find everything they encounter to be superior. In the higher philosophies, it's like, no, that's not true. We would encounter some that are higher, some that are lower. We're not going to be the backwards people necessarily. I mean, I'd even argue that the Vulcans do not possess a higher philosophy. Theirs is a very rigid, and it is a religion. I do consider Vulcan logic, especially how it is actually presented in at least the movie, the motion picture, the movie version of this, you can clearly see this is intended as a religion. But how it is structured seems incredibly rigid. Far more so than most earthly religions I'm familiar with anyway. So I would not consider a higher philosophy. Because this is my interpretation. And to be clear on something, I don't think they really had much consistency and coherence with this in Star Trek, that it's like, hey, we have this idea, let's do it. Hey, we have this idea, let's do it. Oh, wait, these aren't really compatible. And some people will obsess and try to find some way to massage it all together. I think that's unnecessary, even inappropriate. Get to that later, but one example would be the whole, why did the makeup change for Klingons between the movies and the original television series? It's because the budget changed. I'm sorry, we don't need an in-universe explanation, but there are people that will try to do that, and then you got Enterprise that tries to then put it in there as canon. It's like, why? I mean, legitimately, I don't think there's any need for that, and just Worf going, we don't talk about it, in that one episode of Deep Space Nine, that's all you needed. That's completely acceptable. It is a television show, okay? You don't need it to be a coherent universe. Retcons, especially because it's not like a bad faith retcon, right? It was a good faith retcon because it's like, hey, we finally have the budget to do special makeup for the aliens as a species with the Klingons. Let's do it. It's like that's actually good. Anyway, but yeah. So this idea. Oh yeah, come back to the Vulcans. My interpretation is this, and there are things that are stated in the series and movies that do support this. The Vulcans are a deeply emotional and passionate people. The problem is, they are so passionate that if they don't learn to control it, they basically will go on murderous rampages. That they had no logic provides them with a specific means of emotional control so that they are not flying off the handle. So, even though there are plenty of episodes where Spock finds it insulting to be compared to humans when it comes to emotions or not, but at other times it is suggested or even made kind of clear, like a little bit more than implied, not necessarily explicit, that Vulcans are envious of humans because humans have the ability to manage their emotions. We can be deeply passionate, but we all also can manage it. We are not controlled by them, by our emotions. We can allow that to happen, but we don't need to. Whereas Vulcans, if they did not have logic, they would be controlled by their emotions. That is something that you can see throughout it. There are times when that's not the case, granted. But it's like, that's my interpretation there. So this idea of a higher philosophy is like, no, that's literally the way they keep from going homicidal, psychotic, crazy. Okay? So it's like, we are not necessarily of a higher philosophy, but we don't even need that philosophy of theirs. And one thing that I will add to kind of sort of support that is in Star Trek VI, in his quarters when Spock is talking with Valeris. I very much do read that as, especially when he is saying the whole logic is only the beginning, it's not the end. He has reached the point that he is somewhat more he is in tune with his emotions. Which I hate the way saying that, sounds so cliche, but that he is in sufficient control of it that he actually can allow his emotions to come out. That logic is only the beginning. That he's actually gone past that. He's reached wisdom. Where the logic still has its value. He keeps the logic. That is still important, but he isn't limited to that. That is part of my feeling there. But still, this idea, and then it goes on, and I also need to look at my notes for some of this. So that Starfleet's standards were so high that they were only getting the most intelligent, and these people were the most easily swayed. It's like, it's just kind of stupid. But I mean, there is the idea, and I've said this in other things before, I just don't remember when it was. I think it was in Princess Bride, that the ability for somebody to rationalize things, some may just see that as intelligent, as being a sign of intelligence, is also a sign of deep foolishness, in my opinion, and even ignorance. It is certainly not wisdom. Because if you can rationalize anything, that means that even evil you can rationalize. Even things that you should know, or do know, are wrong, you're rationalizing. Like, yeah, I think it was in The Princess Bride, in the book introduction, not the 25th anniversary or 30th anniversary introduction, but I think the actual introduction at the start of The Princess Bride. Because in that, they're not real, but his son didn't read the book, but is trying to lie to him about it, and the wife is, like, giving excuses. It's like, well, no, it doesn't. No, you're wrong there. Because it's like she's rationalizing for the son. It's like, that's wrong. He lied. It doesn't matter. I mean, say, sure, he didn't read the book. That's his point. He's lying to me. That's wrong, and you should not be covering for him. You should not be rationalizing for him. So they're basically describing here that, yeah, people that are very good at rationalizing can be swayed by these other people that they encounter, and so are actually very weak-minded. Yes, very intelligent, but very weak-minded. Okay. But it's like, you can have a weak-minded individual who's incredibly intelligent. You can have a weak-minded individual who's not intelligent. You can also have somebody who is incredibly strong-minded and incredibly intelligent, and somebody who's incredibly strong-minded and incredibly stupid. Those are not tied together. It's not like, oh, well, we need to lower the standards. We need people of lesser intelligence because that's going to protect them. It's like, not really. Yeah, it even has in here. I've always found it amusing that my academy class was the first group selected by Starfleet on the basis of somewhat more limited intellectual agility. There are so many problems with this statement. For one thing, you're saying that Kirk isn't intelligent. He is highly intelligent. That is clear in the original series. There are plenty of times when it's not just Spock. But it's also like when you get into the movies, which granted, movies post-state this and come after. But it's like, he is equal to Khan, who is supposed to be highly intelligent, okay? Like above normal, well above normal intelligence. But Kirk is able to match him at times. Not perfectly, but he's able to match him. And some of that is because not just the whole 3D fighting, because Khan isn't familiar with that. It's not just that kind of experience thing, but even the using of the prefix code. That's high. That does show high intelligence as far as he knows all the different things available to him, and is able to take advantage of them in ways that even Saavik had no idea of. And she's a Vulcan. She should know it very well. She should be very intelligent as well. No idea what's going on. Spock guesses what Kirk is doing, but Spock not only has the benefit of all this knowledge, but also experience with Kirk. So Kirk asks him for something. It's like, okay, I know what you're thinking, but he's not the one providing the solution. So yeah, I don't get this. Plus, there's the issue of throughout the original series, there are multiple commanders who are older than him, who are starship captains. I mentioned Commodore Decker. I'm pretty sure he was Commodore. I might be wrong on that, but he was starship commander, and his son is later in this. But he is, I'm pretty sure. William Watt? No, I might have I don't remember the last name, but it's like he was clearly older, and there were others as well. There were starship captains who are older than Kirk. So you're saying that they would have been part of these new humans, which were so intelligent that they actually were incompetent. So then why are they still starship captains? There's also another issue. McCoy and Scott are both older than Kirk. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that, well, the actors for both were older than Shatner. DeForest Kelley and James Doohan were both older than William Shatner, as I recall. But I'm pretty sure in universe, McCoy is older and Scotty is older. So what does that mean about them? So McCoy was that, but he's not fit for being out there? It's such nonsense. Yeah, he goes on to talk about how it's horrible that when coming in, well, because it became such a rare idea of somebody being able to return their ship safely and with the crew mostly intact, that when the Enterprise did complete its 5-year mission, came back, it was like, oh, we have to celebrate. This is a wonderful, amazing achievement. We have to do this. And this ended up exaggerating his status and the status of the ship, the status of the crew and all that. And it's like, oh, this was really a terrible, horrible, annoying thing. Just trying to... I don't have anything highlighted on this. I'm just looking at this. It also tries to say, like in a footnote here, yeah, on its historic 5-year voyage, and became the first starship captain in history to bring back both his vessel and his crew relatively intact after such a mission. It's also mentioned, though, that he lost 94. The crew of the Enterprise was about 400, so he lost a quarter during that 5-year mission. And that's considered relatively intact. Okay, I'll be kind. That I could believe that if a Navy captain came back and it's like, yeah, I lost a quarter of my people during the mission, but hey, it was 5 years. I say, okay, maybe that's, you still did a good job, but this isn't war. I mean, true, maybe that's help explain is why it's 5 years, but it's like, what? Also, they did change that crew and they got new crew as they went. So it's like, I mean, this is just a weird thing. The Kirk preface very, very much left me wondering, why is this in here? Who wrote this? Who allowed it to be in here? Because it's... You're insulting Kirk by saying that, yeah, I'm stupid and that's why I'm good at my job. It's like, what are you talking about? And it's also, it doesn't make sense, the idea that, oh, he's the first one that brought it back intact. It's like, there are plenty of captains older than him, and why the hell are you making these starships? Because one thing that's very clear in the original series, a starship is huge and powerful, okay? It's like, one thing that is canon in there is that the Constitution class, which is what the Enterprise is, has sufficient power to destroy a planet. Okay? That is stated in more than one episode. They're really powerful. Why are you at that level? And it's like, yeah, first class that we think are going to be good because we made sure they were stupid. That's what we're giving them. There's also, how the hell do you become captain in that? I was like, he was an ensign. There's stories in the original series that he shares about that. Like, Kodos, was that it? In Conscience of the King? It was like he was on a it's like, and other times it was like, yes, I was an ensign. I was, or a lieutenant there, and that I got to know these captains there that, they really shaped so much. It's like, apparently, nope. None of that. They were by people that it's like, oh yeah, we expected them to die. They came back, the ships were lost. I'm just lucky. I mean, I am I am concerned about the future of this. This story. Uh, uh, I just wanna. I'm just looking this over, but it says. Uh, yeah, mm, I am concerned about how the rest of this book is gonna go. Ooh, that's a terrible opening for it. It fully is. I do not know why anyone would. I just because it feels like bad faith retconning. Since I already mentioned some retconning, and it's like there's good faith retconning and there's bad faith retconning. Where just to be clear, retcon, retold continuity. I'm pretty sure that's what it stands for. And the idea is, hey, yeah, you know that thing that we said was going on in the past? We've changed that now. Sorry. So, I'm just trying to think of an example other than the Klingons. That's for Star Trek. Does that kind of work? I think it. I'm trying to remember. Kind of? No. I mean, well, yeah. Technically, largely speaking, there were times that they retconned. This is kind of weird, but when you go through the original series, even just that, you do see suggestions of it, at least, that Vulcan sexuality is really inconsistent. I mean, you got to mock time that sets up some stuff, but that also sets things up where it's like this is the first time for Spock because he's only now getting married, but it's also like cute they were betrothed when they were children. But then later on we got the whole 7-year thing, and it's like, huh? I mean, it just there's weird issues, and it's also another weirdness as far as the whole how did Sarek, his father, marry a human, have a human wife when there's also this whole ritual of the betrothment that's a psychic link that she would never be able to reproduce. I mean, there's issues, okay? Like I said, it kind of is like they just, oh, we got this idea, we're going to do this idea. Oh, we got this idea, we're going to do this idea. They don't necessarily come together. People try to force them together, but I feel it's more like, nah, they just made a mistake. Enjoy it, move on. I mean, so it's like, some of that is good faith retconning, I feel, where it's like, yeah, we made a mistake, but we're going to move on with what we think what will work going forward. It's like, that's a good faith kind of retcon. Or just the makeup changed, and it's like, we don't talk about it. Moving on. This feels like bad faith retconning, where it's all the stuff before, we're just going to say that doesn't matter. That we're just going to say this and ignore what it was before. We're not asking you to forgive the differences. We're not asking that. No, we're just saying ignore all that. That Kirk is actually dumb. That's why he's great. And that the people before him, they had such problems. I was like, it's even stated at one point, at least I thought it was, that there was never a mutiny on board a starship. And it's like, it literally says in there that there were mutinies before. So I guess you're just trying to, well, what's a starship? I think maybe you might be able to try to use that, but it's like, Or you're just writing without realizing that you got all this history that you need to respect and aren't. It just. Hmm. And the whole thing with the names, because, yeah, that's right, I had a little bit more there. How do you know then that your child is going to decide to be in Starfleet? Or is it a, guess what, kid? You're dumb. You're going to Starfleet. Or is it just a, guess what, kid? You're going to Starfleet. Mama? Starfleet. Mama? I'm Dada, but Starfleet. I mean, it's like. I find it frustrating. I do. And partly it's just this nonsense, but there's also. I don't like this premise of, and it's kind of like the whole, oh, well, we'll encounter these higher philosophers out there. This premise that in the future, culture will change so heavily that it will be unrecognizable. I don't really like that idea. The idea that, oh, well, we'll just drop surnames. It's like, why? They help with uniquely identifying somebody. They help with potentially having a heritage, having a history to you. Why would you think we would give that up? And it's fine if you believe that will happen, but then I just said, okay, why? What is the point in time? What is the event that you believe will lead to that? Like, there's one book I read a while ago called Of Ducks in the Universes. And in that, there is a reference to, after a specific event, I'll leave you to, well, no, I can say what it is, because it's critical to the story and it's introduced very early on, that they figured out a way to connect from one universe to another. But it's the idea of, like, just branching universes, and it's like, what is that original thing that caused the branch? Well, after that, and now they have the ability to go back and forth between them, but after that, it even says that people started choosing nature-related names for their children. So the main character, I don't remember his name, but he was born prior to this event. He ends up meeting and falling in love with a woman who was born after, and she was named Bean. As a nickname, I understand that, but as an actual given name, that seems a bit much. But anyway, it still like, okay, there's this event that's why. I'm not entirely sure why it would be we're going to nature, but it's like that is when the trend started. It's like, and for some reason, that's what was decided on its trend. It's like, okay, I can understand that. I'm good with that. What is it here, though? I mean, if anything, I could actually see it being, no, we're adding a name. We're not going to stay at 3 names. We're going to go to 4 names. We're certainly not going down to 2, because a 4th name might be to help identify, oh, you're from Earth, as opposed to Alpha Centauri. Which I'm actually trying to remember. Wait, where is it that Zephyr Cochran is actually from, according to the original series? They changed that in First Contact. Which, by the way, I got issues with First Contact. Don't get me wrong on this. But that I could describe as a good faith retcon. That putting Zephyr Cochran on Earth rather than in let's just go with it being Alpha Centauri. I could be wrong on that, but that's, I don't remember the name of that episode. I'm sorry, but that's in the original series, that he is in fact from a planetary colony instead of from Earth. But it's like, okay, but the Enterprise went to Earth in the past. So, and they wanted Cochrane there. They wanted it to be First Contact. They wanted it to be First Warp, which you need Cochrane for that. So it's like, okay, so we're just going to put that. That's kind of good faith in that it's not that they're ignoring it. It's that hey, we need for the story to be told, we need things to be here now. It's not done with disrespect. You can have an issue with it, that's fine. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying that for me, I understand that, and I'm willing to accept that, and as I said, I would consider that a good faith retcon. That is for the purpose of the story, not to destroy the history, but just, this is the history we want to use. Although, yeah, Yeah, actually, if they had tried to keep the original, because part of the reason why I don't like First Contact is it very clearly. I would say that during the TNG movies, this is part of the reason I don't want to do their novelizations. I'm at 45 minutes. I might as well just keep going. Is that I do recognize that across the TNG movies, you do see, in my opinion, the science fiction decline. And First Contact is actually a very strong example of this because half of it occurs on a more or less modern day Earth. I mean, yes, some differences, of course, but it's like, by and large, it's recognizable as Earth, and it is Earth. So it's like, so much for it being Star Trek. It's Earth. So, yeah. And it's like half of the movies. But anyway, I mean, still, the worst thing is in Nemesis that they have a microscope in sickbay that is straight up something that it's like they went to a like medical or scientific supply warehouse and bought it. I mean, it's like, really? Anyway. But if they had kept it where he was, in fact, where Earth had already, humanity had established planetary colonies, they didn't have warp drive yet, but Cochrane is the one who figures it out. That actually would be neat if they had done that, and then you had to have travel back north, because that would have maintained a science fiction aspect to the setting of the past. Instead of it being basically modern Earth with the science fiction of the Enterprise and of the Borg. It's like instead of doing that juxtaposition, just have it be Star Trek past, which is still future for us. That would may have actually done better with that film, or at least made me happy with it. Would have made it a bit more complicated. Because you'd need to be warping back and forth. But still, it could have been interesting to have it happen that way. Just, it would have been different. I'm not sure if you would be able to have the Borg attacking Earth make as much sense. Anyway, I love Star Trek, so don't be surprised if I start doing more of that, where I'm just talking about Star Trek, other Star Trek things, and just what I'm reading. All right, but yeah, oh boy, as I said, I'm concerned. Hopefully, these prefaces are just there, and I can ignore them. Okay. I tend not to like talking about what books I will do next, but actually, no, I'm pretty sure I did already say. I have the novelizations through this 6. So the next one is Duty, Honor, and Redemption, which is the Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock, and Voyage Home together, Final Frontier, and then Undiscovered Country. I'm going to go through all those. So, hopefully, even if this one, it does end up, I set the Kobo over here. Even if this one does end up having issues that my concerns now end up being validated, hopefully as we continue, that doesn't prove to be the case. We will find out, because I'm committed. I want to get through them, and it's also I want to read through them in order, and I really want to get to Undiscovered Country. Favorite movie. I want to see if it'll be my favorite of the novels. All right, we will find out. And also, one thing I don't know if I would have said before: there's 28 chapters to this book. It's going to be going for a while, so yeah. All right. See you next time.